Chosen one. If your eyes stopped here, it wasn't an accident. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to reveal 3 divine traps disguised as answered prayers. And the one reason God has made you wait until you thought it was too late. This is the message you've been praying for at 3 a.m. Chosen one, I know you're tired. I know you've buried more dreams than you've celebrated. You've watched doors slam shut while younger people walk through opportunities that should have been yours. And lately, something's been waking you up in the dark. Not fear, but a knowing that you're standing at a crossroads, and one wrong step could cost you everything. But here's what heaven just revealed. The delay wasn't denial. The closed doors weren't rejection. They were protection from traps you couldn't see. And right now, this very moment, you're closer to your breakthrough than you've ever been. But so is the enemy's final attack. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to recognize the counterfeit before it destroys you, and why your age isn't a disqualification. It's your greatest weapon. If your spirit is stirring right now, type 999 in the comments. It's your confirmation from heaven that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Then subscribe, because what I'm about to share next will change everything. Your wilderness is ending. Let's begin. 3 divine traps that look like blessings. It's 3:47 in the morning. You're awake again. And this time, it's not your bladder or your phone. It's something deeper, tugging at your spirit, a restlessness you can't name. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 58, been a nurse for 32 years. For 6 months, she kept waking at 3 a.m. with this weight on her chest. Then it happened. The opportunity she'd prayed for. Head nurse position, better pay, closer to home. Perfect on paper. Her husband was thrilled. Her daughter said, "Mom, this is your answered prayer." But Sarah couldn't shake this feeling in her gut. Something whispered, "Wait." Here's what nobody tells you about being chosen. The devil doesn't show up with a pitchfork anymore. He shows up with a job offer, a relationship, an opportunity that checks every box on your prayer list. That's trap number 1, the perfect timing trap. You've been waiting for years. Suddenly, boom, 3 doors swing open at once. The pressure's crushing. Everyone's celebrating. And you think, finally. Let me tell you about Mike. At 61, he got laid off after 27 years. 18 brutal months of job searching. Then 3 offers landed the same week. Great pay, but far from grandkids. Exciting startup, but risky. Flexible consulting, but unpredictable income. Everyone said, pick one before they disappear. His wife begged, just take the stable one. But Mike's spirit kept saying, none of these are it. He waited 3 more agonizing months. Then offer 4 appeared, never advertised, through an old friend. Perfect fit, better pay. 12 minutes from his grandkids. If he'd grabbed those first offers, he'd have missed this one entirely. The enemy knows your prayer list. He creates counterfeits that are 90% right, but 10% poison. Remember Esau? He wasn't evil, just hungry. He traded his entire birthright for one bowl of stew. One moment of, I need this now, cost him everything. 3 warning signs. First, pressure to decide fast. Offer expires Friday. God never rushes life-altering decisions. The enemy does. Second, everyone's excited, but your spirit is quiet. Friends congratulate you, but deep inside there's no peace. Listen to that. Third, it solves immediate problems, but doesn't align with ultimate calling. It pays bills? Yes. But 5 years from now, will you feel alive or just surviving? Sarah waited. Turned down that perfect position. 2 months later, that hospital was under federal investigation. The entire leadership team was fired. Her nursing license would have been at risk. God saw the truck coming. She only saw the shiny offer. Trap number 2, the influential person trap. A successful person suddenly takes interest in you. They want to mentor you, partner with you, and you think, finally, my breakthrough is here. Let me tell you about Carol. Carol was 52 with a small home bakery dream. Then she met Jennifer at church. Confident, designer handbags, always talking about business ventures. Jennifer said, I see potential. Let me help you scale this. 6 months later, Carol's life was in ruins. Jennifer convinced her to take a $50,000 loan, negotiated a commercial lease, triple what Carol budgeted, brought in staff, her cousins who needed work, connected her with suppliers, all paying Jennifer kickbacks. When the business struggled, Jennifer vanished. Carol lost everything: the business, her savings, her home. She's 56 now, living in her daughter's basement. Here's the truth. Judas didn't betray Jesus from across the room. He kissed him. Intimacy became the weapon. 5 red flags. 1, they rush intimacy. Instant best friend within weeks. Real relationships build slowly. 2, they praise then criticize. You're talented, but you need to change how you dress. 3, they isolate you. Your family doesn't understand your vision like I do. 4, they always benefit financially. Every opportunity involves their cousin, their partner. 5, your peace leaves when they enter. You feel drained, anxious, smaller. Your spirit knows. Studies show financial abuse costs Americans over $53 billion yearly. 60% of the time, it's not strangers. It's people we trusted. James, I know he quotes scripture, but if your wife, who prayed you through cancer, says something's off about him, listen to her. Trap number 3, the comfortable settling trap. This one's sneakiest. It feels like wisdom, like maturity, like finally accepting reality. Robert is 67, spent 38 years as an aerospace engineer. Good career, comfortable retirement. But at 59, God called him to teach high school physics in underserved communities. The salary cut was steep, $120K to $45K. His kids said, Dad, you're almost 60. Just coast to retirement. You've earned it. So he stayed 8 more years, retired at 67 with full pension. Now he's comfortable, takes vacations. But every morning, there's this ache. You were supposed to do something that mattered. He reached out to that school last year. They'd hired someone younger. He volunteers now, tutors on weekends. But it's not the same. He told me, I chose security over obedience. I'll carry that regret to my grave. The enemy doesn't need scandal to destroy you. Just lull you to sleep with comfort. Netflix, golf, a nice quiet retirement, and you die with every sermon still inside you. Every kid you could have mentored still lost. Moses was 80 when God called him from the burning bush. Not at 40 when he was strong. At 80, when he had nothing left but dependence on God. What if Moses had said no? God, I'm too old. Let someone younger do it. Israel stays enslaved. Moses dies a shepherd, not a liberator. You're 64. You've played it safe for decades. That voice whispers, you're too old, too tired. But what if you have 20 more years? What if your most important work happens between 65 and 85? The pattern, how to spot all 3. Traps. Every trap follows 3 steps. Appeals to your logic, makes perfect sense on paper. Appeals to your fear, scarcity, time running out, last chance. Bypasses your spirit. You can't explain why it feels off, so you ignore it. Before you say yes, ask, does this require me to rush, or can I wait and pray? Does this bring peace or pressure? Does this align with what God's been whispering, or what I've been wishing for. Now you know the 3 traps. But here's what's haunting you. If all these doors are closing, then when? When is my breakthrough coming? What I'm about to tell you in part 2 might make you angry at first, because I'm going to explain why God made you wait until you're too old, why He didn't answer at 30, 40, or 50. But I'll also show you why that delay is the greatest gift He could have given you. Moses was 80, Sarah was 90. David spent 15 years in caves. The delay wasn't denial. It was preparation. And yours? It's about to pay off. Stay with me. Part 2 changes everything. The divine delay. Why God makes you wait until you're too old. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if God didn't answer your prayer at 30 because you weren't ready to handle the blessing without it destroying you? Think about David, anointed king at 15 years old. A prophet poured oil on his head. God's chosen, destiny confirmed. But he didn't become king until he was 30. 15 years of waiting, running from Saul, hiding in caves, watching someone else sit on his throne. He had 2 chances to kill Saul and take the kingdom by force. Twice, his men whispered, "This is it. God delivered him into your hands." But David refused both times. Why? Because at 15, David would have been a disaster. At 15, he had the anointing, but not the character. He needed caves. He needed betrayal. He needed to learn how to lead broken men who had nothing to lose. When he finally sat on that throne at 30, he was ready. You're 58 years old. You've been waiting 15, maybe 25 years, and you think you've wasted your life. But what if those weren't wasted years? What if those were cave years? What if God's been building something in you that the 35-year-old version of you could never carry? Let me show you 3 reasons God waits until you're too old. Reason 1, your ego had to die first. Meet Pastor John. He felt called to ministry at 25. Charismatic, educated, confident. He tried to plant a church at 28, failed spectacularly. 150 people left within a year. Tried again at 35. Even worse, public scandal, humiliation. For 9 years, he worked secular jobs, warehouse, Uber driver. Nobody knew he used to be Pastor John. At 44, broken and humble, he started a small Bible study in his living room. Just 8 people. Now he's 52, leading a church of 800. But here's what he told me. At 28, I wanted to be famous. At 44, I just wanted to be faithful. The first version would have destroyed me. The second version saved me. The Apostle Paul understood this. Brilliant, educated, zealous in his 20s. After his Damascus Road encounter at around 30, you'd think God would immediately launch him into ministry, right? Wrong. Paul disappeared into Arabia for 3 years, then obscurity for several more. Why the delay? The download, the vision, the revelation was instant. But the transformation, the death of ego, that took years. At 30, you would have built an empire to your own name. At 50, you'll build a legacy to his. That's why he made you wait. Reason 2. The wilderness builds what the palace can't. Moses at 40 was educated in Egypt's finest schools. Confident, connected. He tried to save his people his own way. Killed an Egyptian. Had to flee. Moses at 80 had spent 40 years in the desert tending sheep. All that education seemed wasted. All that training, gone. But here's what the desert gave him that the palace couldn't. Dependence on God. At 40, Moses said, I can save my people. At 80, Moses said, I can't even speak well. At 40, he acted in his own strength and became a murderer. At 80, he acted in God's power and performed miracles. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 71 now, wanted to write her entire life. At 35, She tried to publish, 47 rejections. At 45, she gave up, focused on her career as a hospital administrator. At 50, her husband died of cancer. The next 15 years, brutal, grief, loneliness, health scares. She walked through darkness most people never see. At 68, she started writing again. But not romance novels like she'd planned at 35. A memoir about walking through the valley of the shadow of death with faith as her only flashlight. Published at 70. Bestseller at 71. Her publisher asked, "Why didn't you write this at 40?" Margaret smiled. "Because at 40, I hadn't lived it yet. I had theory. Now I have testimony." Your wilderness wasn't wasted time. It's where God stripped away everything you thought you needed so you could discover the one thing you can't live without: Him. That divorce that broke you at 55? That wasn't the end. It was your doctorate in compassion. That financial collapse at 48? That wasn't punishment. It was your MBA in trusting God. When the bank account says 0, you're not too old. You're finally qualified. Reason 3. The blessing. You're praying for requires the you you're becoming. What if the reason God hasn't opened that door yet is because the version of you that walks through it needs to be different from the version knocking on it right now? Sarah was promised a son around age 65. She gave birth at 90, 25 years of waiting. At 65, she was still trying to help God. Remember Hagar and Ishmael? Still operating in control and anxiety. At 90, she was completely surrendered, laughing at impossibility. The Sarah at 65 would have raised Isaac with fear. The Sarah at 90 raised him with faith. Isaac means laughter, the child born from a woman who finally learned to laugh at what seemed impossible. Think about Job. He lost everything: children, wealth, health, sat in ashes for months, maybe years. Friends abandoned him. Wife told him to curse God and die. Then Job, 42:12. The Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning. Not before the suffering, after, double everything. But here's what we miss. The first family Job raised died in a tragedy. The second family lived long, prosperous lives. What changed? Not God. Job changed. The father who went through unspeakable loss became a different father, more grateful, more present, more aware that every moment is a gift. The marriage you're praying for at 60? You couldn't have handled it at 40. You would have repeated the same patterns that destroyed the first one. But now, after the therapy, the healing, the learning to love yourself first, now you're ready. Listen to this. Vera Wang entered fashion at 40. Colonel Sanders started KFC at 62 after 1,000 rejections. Laura Ingalls Wilder published her first book at 65. Julia Child became a TV star at 51. Harvard Business School research shows the average age of successful startup founders is 45, not 25. 45. Experience beats youthful energy every time. But here's the one that matters most. Ray Stedman, pastor and Bible teacher. At 65, diagnosed with aggressive cancer. 18 months to live. Instead of retiring, he taught his most powerful sermon series ever. Died at 66. His last 18 months impacted more lives than his first 45 years. Why? Because he taught with the authority of a man who knew time was short. You don't have to live to 100 to fulfill your destiny. You just need to be obedient with the time you have left. 5 years or 35 years. If you're breathing, God's not done. Stop saying, "I wasted my best years." Start saying, "I was being trained." Stop saying, "I'm too old to start over." Start saying, "I'm the perfect age to finish strong." Moses was 80. You're right on time. So here's what you do next. First, declare it. Say this out loud. The waiting season is over. The wilderness is ending. I'm stepping into my prepared place. Second, identify your Isaac, the one thing. God isn't asking you to do 47 things, just one. What is it? Mentor one person. Write that book. Start that ministry. Take the next obedient step. Third, find your tribe. 2 or 3 people who see you, not just need you. Who pray with you, not just for you. If you don't have them, ask God. Then watch. Moses was 80. Sarah was 90. Job was broken. David hid in caves. Paul was blinded. Joseph sat in prison. And every single one thought it was over. But it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The door you've been pounding on for 20 years, it's about to open. Not because you earned it, because the training is complete. The ego is dead. The character is formed. You're not forgotten. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're positioned. You're prepared. You're about to step into the greatest chapter of your life. The wilderness is ending. Chosen one. Your promised land is closer than you think. If this hit you in the chest, do 3 things. Type your age, plus the word ready in the comments. Subscribe, because part 3 is coming. God just switched you to plan B. This is why everything collapsed. And send this to one person who's given up, who thinks they're too old, because this isn't just a message, it's a rescue mission. Your wilderness is ending. Get ready.